Okay, class, in this lesson, you are going to learn how checking accounts work, and then you're also going to learn how to complete a check register. So let's go ahead and begin with some definitions so that you are familiar with these terms when you go into a bank. All right, so in the basics, a checking account is essentially an account at a bank that allows you to make deposits, to make withdrawals, and then make transfers from the funds on deposits. Okay. Now, a check is a written order used to tell a bank to pay money or transfer funds from an account. So in this case, if you write a check, you would be considered the drawer, and that check given to the recipient would be the check holder, or also known as the payee. Both you, the drawer, and the individual to whom you write the check, the payee, can be a person. It could also be multiple people, and it can also be a company. Okay, so when you go into a bank and you open up a checking account, a bank will issue you a set of checks, and those checks could be used to transfer funds to individuals or to companies. Now, an electronic funds transfer, also known as EFT, is basically a process of moving funds electronically from one account to another. And then when a check clearing is a process of making sure that there's enough money in an account to cover the amount of a check. So when check clearing takes place, banks will take anywhere between 1 to 10 business days, depending on a number of factors, including their relationship with you, meaning they want to make sure that you're a legitimate person and that they have experience with you banking with them. And then also to the entity or individual to whom you are paying, they want to make sure that it's a legitimate bank, it's a legitimate account holder. And so that process, that behind the scenes process, can take some time, depending on who it is and who you bank with. When you make a deposit, you're going to go into the banking center, for example, and you're going to fill out what's called a deposit slip. And this deposit slip will tell the bank teller what type of deposit and how much you want to make into an account. Okay, you can make a deposit through a bank teller. You can also make one through what's called the automated teller machine, or ATM, or through some electronic devices. There's also a term called direct deposit, and this is often used by employers to deposit your check into your account. Okay, so instead of writing out a physical check, they will electronically deposit those monies into your account. That's called a direct deposit. As I mentioned earlier, the validity and financial worthiness of a deposit has to be verified before your bank will allow, or before a bank will allow their customers to draw on those funds. Okay, so when a direct deposit takes place, those funds will be available immediately. However, if you make a deposit via check, as an example, the bank will make sure that the funds from those checks from the account from which those checks are drawn are available and transferred over before you can withdraw it. That whole process, when you deposit a check, sometimes a hold is put on the account to make sure that enough funds are coming in, or there is funds coming in before they release the hold. Once they release a hold on that check, that means that the funds are now available. Okay. When you receive a check, for example, let's say a friend of yours or somebody writes you a check, you need to what's called endorse that check. Okay, endorsing it means on the back of the check, you are either signing it in writing, stamping it if you're an organization, or confirming electronically that you are making that deposit. Once that money has cleared the depositor's account, so once it clears your account, meaning the funds are in there, then the check is said to be canceled. If a check is written for an amount that cannot be paid out of the account, that means that there is an insufficient fund, and usually a bank will charge an insufficient funds fee to the account holder. Banks also charge a fee for processing return checks. So when there's an insufficient amount of money, fee is charged, and then that check is returned, and there is a charge for returning that check as well. So banks are notorious for charging various types of fees. So when you open up an account with the bank, make sure you understand what those fees are so that you can avoid paying them. There's also a feature called overdraft protection. This is something that you would pay the bank on a monthly basis to have this feature, so that in the event that you write a check in the amount that you don't have enough funds to cover, they will protect that and not charge you an insufficient funds fee. Okay. Now, even though they're not going to charge you a fee, you are paying for this protection in advance. So this is something that you're going to want to avoid. Another way that overdraft protection takes place is if you are able to open a savings account and keep a certain amount of money in that account, then they will tie that savings account to the checking account, and that savings account will act or serve as an overdraft protection. Banks sometimes will charge a fee for that, sometimes they won't. Usually they shouldn't, because this is your account. But you'll want to check with your bank to make sure that you understand if a fee is charged or not. Okay, so there are a lot of different types of checking accounts that are available. Some accounts will charge a maintenance fee for the account, and then other accounts, banks will help you earn a certain amount of interest on the money in the checking account. So let's go over some types of checking accounts. These are some basic types of checking accounts. The names are not standard across from bank to bank, so you're going to want to make sure that you understand what kind of account you're opening. But to just give you a kind of a flavor for the types of accounts that are available, there are basic checking accounts. These are the most popular. There's nothing interesting about these accounts. You can move money in and out of the account, you can make deposits, you can write checks, but it doesn't pay interest. Okay, so it's just basic functional type of account. Then there's also the interest-bearing account, where the checking account earns interest. That might be an interesting feature for someone who maintains a very high average daily balance. But keep in mind that the interest that is being paid today, based on today's rates, they're very, very low. So don't expect to be making hundreds of dollars off of interest. It's probably going to be just a couple dollars at best. Then there's also what's called a free checking account. There's no minimum balance required. They don't charge a maintenance fee. The Federal Truth in Savings Act guarantees that banks offer these types of accounts. Then there's also what's called the express checking account. These are accounts for people who don't want to go into a bank to conduct business. They're usually conducted electronically, either via telephone or by computer or ATM. Some banks will charge a fee when an express account owner uses services of a bank personnel. So if you have an express checking account and you decide to go in to the bank and conduct business, you could be charged a fee for that. Then there's what's called the NOW accounts, the NOW accounts, which stands for Negotiable Order of Withdrawal. These are free checking accounts that have interest payments attached to them. Then there's also the Lifeline checking accounts, which are available in many states for low income consumers. Fees and minimum balances are either low or they don't exist. And these are accounts that are required by law in many states. So you're going to want to check to make sure that your state offers these if you happen to be a low income consumer. And then last but not least, these are online checking accounts. Okay, these are available from traditional, what we call brick and mortar banks, as well as from online banking. They offer customers 24-hour access to funds and the ability to make payments quickly and securely. Online checking accounts are the more popular types of accounts today, since we are now very digital and transactions happen very quickly. So you're going to want to check with your bank if there are any fees associated with having an online checking account. Okay, now bank accounts, you want to know, can be owned by individuals, which is sort of the most common belief, but it can also be owned by a group of individuals. Okay, so spouses or partners may be an owner of an account and they own it jointly, and then businesses can also own an account. So in a single account, only one person can make transactions, make withdrawals and things like that. They're also called individual or sole owner accounts. A sole owner, if you're a sole proprietor, you would be considered a sole owner account. Now, an account that has more than one person listed is called a joint account. That was a term that I just used maybe a minute or two ago. When two individuals have access to an account and they both jointly own the account, it is considered a joint account. And those individuals, either one of those individuals can make withdrawals from that account as well. Okay, now let's take a look at the check register. We're going to shift gears here. So when you're depositing money into a checking account, there are some things that you're going to want to take care of. So, for example, in this example, we have Alice. It tells us that she currently has a balance of $2,300 in her checking account. Okay, she makes a deposit of $425.33. That was her paycheck. So obviously she's not getting direct deposit. She also has a $20 rebate check and a personal check for $550 that she wants to make a deposit to her checking account. Okay, and she also wants to receive $200 in cash. And the question is, how much will she have in her account after the transaction? Okay, so when you go into the bank and conduct business and you want to deposit these three checks and also make a cash withdrawal, this is how you want to note this in this deposit slip. Okay, so what we have here is a diagram of a deposit slip, and there are some things that need to take place that you want to enter so that you are giving written instructions to the bank teller on how to conduct these transactions. Okay, so first you're going to want to put today's date. So I'm going to just say it's 9/12/2025. Okay, so now here, this is where we list all the things we want to do. Okay, so the top portion here will be your deposit. We're not depositing any cash here, so we don't need to list anything here, but we do want to list each of the checks singly. Okay, so the first check is $425.33, and the second check is $20.00, and the third check is $550. Okay, and 0 cents. And then you're going to want to add all of those up, and so the subtotal here will be 33 cents. And then adding this side, we've got $995 that we are depositing. Okay, and then we're going to subtract cash that we want to withdraw. So she wants to receive $200 in cash, so we're going to note that less cash received. Okay, so our net deposit will then be $795.33. Okay, so this is what you would give to the bank teller. You would give this deposit ticket. You would also give each of the three checks that you're going to deposit, and you're going to notate them, and then the bank teller will receive these instructions on the deposit slip, and note that you're going to make these three deposit and make a cash withdrawal. And so she will go ahead and process this and make sure that these amounts are correct and give you the $200 in cash. Okay, Now, the question we want to answer is how much will she have in her account after this transaction? So her net balance, or I'm sorry, her current balance before the deposit was $2,300 in her checking account. After this transaction on the deposit slip, we're going to make a net deposit of $795.33. So we're going to notate that, $795.33. So we're going to add these together and get the balance after the transaction. And now her bank account should have $3,105.33. Okay, so hopefully you have a better feel for how deposit tickets are completed and also know how to calculate the final balance on the account once the transaction is completed. Okay, example 2. This is the check register. So I apologize. I thought the previous example we were going to go through the check register. Let me go ahead and erase these. Okay, so in your check register, this is a booklet that you will also receive along with checks that you're going to get when you open up an account. And this check register is something that you could use to keep track of all of the checks and transactions that take place in your account. Back in the days, this is the way people kept track of transaction. Today, with electronics, fewer people do this, but I just wanted to make sure that you understood how things were done in back in the days. And this is something that you can continue to do if this is the way you want to do it. If you want to maintain transactions on a spreadsheet, that's totally fine as well. As long as you are keeping up with transaction and making sure that transactions have been recorded in your records, this is really important when you're maintaining your account. Okay, so check register. Here in this example, we say that Juan has a checking account with Union Bank, so he writes both paper and electronic checks and makes EFTs, okay, electronic fund transfers. So for each transaction, Juan enters the necessary information, okay, so the check or confirmation number, so we've got the check number here, we've got the date, we got the type of transaction, and the amount, okay. He uses the letter E to indicate an electronic transaction, and so here we need to determine the balance in the account after Star Cable Company check is written. Okay, so we start with a balance of $3,672.27, and we see that he is making a payment to DeWitt Auto Body for car repair in the amount of $1,721. Okay, so we would say that we are going to subtract $1,721, and that works out to a total of $1,951.27. Okay, then he also makes a payment or writes a check to Kate's Guitar Hut for strings, so we're going to subtract $32.50, and when we do, we get a total of $1,918.77. Then we have a deposit from a paycheck of $821.53. So we're going to go ahead and add $821.53, and that should give us a total of $2,740.30. Then he makes a payment electronically to Verizon Wireless for $101.50, and that should give us a balance of $2,638.80. So notice that everything that's in blue is a running balance, and everything in red is a withdrawal, and then anything in green is a deposit. Okay, and then lastly, we have an electronic payment to Star Cable Company in the amount of $138.90, and subtracting that out gives us a balance of $2,499.90. Okay, so this is how you would maintain your check register. And so as you notice that after every transaction, we note it's the running balance, and this is how we keep up with transactions in our account. Okay, another thing to also note is that payments, so anything that's withdrawn from the account is listed in the payment amount column, and anything that's deposited is noted in the deposit column. Okay? All right. Hopefully that made sense to you in terms of maintaining a check register. If any of this was confusing, or if you need to listen to the recording again, please go back to the beginning of the recording. Thank you.